You know what it is?
It's the time of the week, yo.
It's the time of the week where we're going to be bringing the Bitcoin that Satoshi created to the world.
We got it, man. And this is kind of a special one, Mr. G.
Yes, This is kind of like a Christmas special.
It's a Christmas special, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Centbee Show. My name's Lorien, Gamaroff, and my co-host is Kage, Christmas special, Ntshingila. Kage, welcome to the show.
What's up, Mr. G?
Yeah, man, we're getting closer to the end of the year. It's December now.
Yeah, man.
And we've done episode 60. This is it. We're in it. But it's nice to end the year off. I mean, this is going to be our last show of the year.
Yeah.
Not the last show ever. Don't worry about that. We've got plans next year.
Yeah, like we said, Mr. G, I mean, our mission only got started. So there's plenty for us to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're just so happy to be giving you guys now episode 60 of the Centbee Show, where we're talking about BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. This has been our mission from day one, 60 episodes ago, was to try and give you guys information about Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Of course, today, when we talk about Bitcoin in the mainstream media and all that, people don't talk about BSV. They're talking about BTC.
Yeah, the bootleg version.
That's right. That is in fact the changed version of Bitcoin. You know, there was this whole thing about forks. The Bitcoin community split, and BTC managed to retain the ticker symbol from the exchanges, BTC.
Yeah.
Not many people know that is an alternative version of Bitcoin, just because it's got the highest price, and it's what everybody calls Bitcoin. It's not, in fact, Satoshi's Bitcoin. Satoshi's Bitcoin is the Bitcoin that follows the original Satoshi Nakamoto white paper that was published by Satoshi Nakamoto. And Bitcoin SV, which is the Bitcoin we always talk about, isn't the only Bitcoin version out there, and there are a few others, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Gold, whatever. Bitcoin SV is the only one that follows the original Bitcoin protocol.
Yeah.
And that's why we believe that Bitcoin SV is the true Bitcoin. But the point of this show, Kage, is we're going to go over this whole year.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some of the shows that we've done, because in fact it's evergreen content.
Yeah, that's the beauty of what we do, Mr. G, because, you know, you can go back in time and actually, you know, find the content still useful. You know, it doesn't expire, like you're saying. It's evergreen. So it's kind of awesome also just to give a nice recap, because you'll find it insightful in terms of some of the episodes that we touched on. So you can also have the privilege of going back in time and just checking them out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You know, we're not a news channel. We don't talk about what's happening in the news now. So, you know, in a month's time, the content becomes old.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about everlasting concepts around Bitcoin and its goals.
Yeah.
And so every one of our shows, you're going to notice we're talking about a specific aspect of Bitcoin that people have either misunderstood or they maybe put too much emphasis on it. And so our shows can be watched at any time. The information is as relevant today as it was when we first shot those shows over the last year of 2024. And so if you want to know more about these concepts, go back and watch the past shows, because we're not talking about current events. We're talking about evergreen concepts in Bitcoin that people still don't get right to this day.
That's correct.
When we do our shows, probably the first thing you notice when we do a show is we have a great thumbnail. KG whips together his mad ass thumbnails, and they're just too cool to let them just fade away into the archives. And so we're going to show those as well. We want to bring those up.
It's all fun and games, you know, when working on this thumbnail, but we always have to consider, like, we have a message to communicate out there. So even if we are having fun in some of the stuff that we do, it's, you know, the main objective is actually to spread the message about Satoshi's vision.
Yeah,
so
and
I think
grab attention.
Straight up, Mr. G. And I feel like our thumbnails actually do hit the spot, because they do spark like a conversation, you know.
And they're really fun. I must admit, I always crack up about them.
But the cool part is, you know, it's more of a collective thing, because it's, sometimes we talk about these concepts, we try this, we try that, you know. Yeah. But I think the final, you know, version of it, like, it always surprises us.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, you know, we're going to take you on a tour now. We're going to show you some of these thumbnails. We're going to have a good laugh about them. And we're going to tell you about what the content is that's covered in that video. And then if that interests you, then you can go ahead and watch that video. So, Kage, I think what we should do is let's bring up the first one and let's have a look at it.
Straight up, Ms. G. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Ms. G, I remember this topic very well. Our first one comes from episode 9. And topic was the myth of decentralization.
Yes, and if you look there, this was when we were still a little bit more conservative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a llama in the background. I guess that isn't too conservative. We were still trying to find our voice in terms of these thumbs. But anyway, this episode is all about what's called the myth of decentralization. And this was an early show, episode 9.
Yeah.
Because decentralization really has become the most misunderstood topic in Bitcoin today. The idea that decentralization is about government control.
Yeah.
I think that was really the message that crept into Bitcoin very early.
Definitely, yeah.
Where people wanted to use Bitcoin because they thought that the decentralization aspect of Bitcoin was so that governments and law enforcement couldn't track down people and couldn't go and shut down the system.
Yeah.
This idea that Bitcoin is so important and so necessary and yet so dangerous to the government and to law enforcement and to regulators. People think that when Satoshi Nakamoto created a decentralized system, the idea was that, well, this is because he doesn't want people to stop it, to bring it to a halt.
They basically thought Satoshi was anti-government.
Yeah, exactly. And so this episode goes on about that decentralization, and it's really just to show that the decentralization was not about government resistance.
Yep.
It was first and foremost to be able to bring about the idea of a peer-to-peer cash system.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the title of the white paper. And when you have a decentralized system, and this is what Satoshi created, was this ability to be able to connect directly to another person. That's the other peer that we talk about. A peer-to-peer means person to person.
Yeah.
And so I can send you a digital payment directly without going through a central intermediary who will then verify and validate that transaction. But what I can do is I can send you a digital cash transaction in an offline environment directly to your device. And of course, there's a lot of discussion around IPv6 today, where IPv6 is all about being able to have your own address on a network and not just a shared IP address or something that's owned by an ISP or something. But where you can now have an IP address and you can connect to a person directly with that IPv6 address. And using simple payment verification, you can then verify that cash payment. So that was what that part of the decentralization was for.
That sounds awesome already, because like we've been saying, decentralization was more about a system that's, robust and can withstand all these global transactions, basically.
That's right. The fact that you only ever need to be aware of or know about your transactions. You don't need to now go and verify and validate everybody's transactions in the world. And so that was very important, the decentralization part in terms of peer-to-peer cash. But then, of course, as a network, if you have a network that is centralized, then if it goes down, well, then nobody can use it. But in a decentralized network, if part of the network goes down, then it doesn't matter because there's going to be another part of the network that can continue processing transactions. So that's what Satoshi Nakamoto was driving at when he talked about decentralization. So that's really the point of that episode. Go and check it out, and you're going to see more about what we talk about in terms of decentralization.
This is what we're talking about, Mr. G, when we're talking about evergreen content. Because, decentralization is still, a misunderstood concept in the BTC space.
100%. Well, if people want to have it cleared up, check out episode 9.
You heard it, guys. So remember to check out episode 9, the myth of decentralization.
All right, Kage. This is where now things started getting a little bit zany. I must admit, I had a good laugh when we started going this route.
It was funny, Mr. G. For me, I still nominate it as one of the funniest, with the purple cow in the background there. We're talking about Bitcoin. Like, is Bitcoin money?
Yes.
And we compare it to all these historic methods that we used to exchange. So with this episode, we were just sort of like deciphering like the whole idea of Bitcoin, it being money. But now BTC, is no longer acting as money, but it's still connoting itself as money.
Yeah, exactly. Now, of course, this was a clickbait title, Is Bitcoin Money? When people get into Bitcoin, they keep hearing about it being money. It's scarce, it's limited in supply. And of course, everybody out there is talking about how this is like gold. And so this whole topic is another misunderstood thing about Bitcoin.
Big time.
When we look at money isn't just an abstract idea. Of course, we have paper notes. Now, that's not what we call money.
Yeah.
That's what we call currency.
Yeah.
And there's actually a difference.
Big time, yeah.
But the idea of money is that it has certain properties. It's divisible, it's durable, it's medium of exchange, and all that. But at the end of the day, if it is going to be money, it must have some kind of value. Or at least linked to some kind of value. And so when people talk about BTC being money, they will go on about it being all those other things, and of course they'll say it's a store of value, but they never explain what is the value inside Bitcoin BTC.
That's so true, Mr. Chi. Now that you put it like that, it's actually quite an ambiguous term, because it's like store of value, because the value can be nothing.
What is the value? So we want to just draw a comparison in this episode, is Bitcoin money, between Bitcoin BSV and Bitcoin BTC, and to see which of them actually is more like money. When we look at BSV now, of course, the way Satoshi intended it, could we call BSV money? And I think that we could.
Definitely.
Because not only is BSV all the same things, it's divisible, durable, portable, medium of exchange, unit of account, and all that kind of stuff, but it does actually have intrinsic value. The value of BSV comes from the commodity ledger, the decentralized ledger, the blockchain, if you like. That's the word that everybody uses. And the amazing thing about the Bitcoin blockchain is that you can store information there. It remains immutable because you can't change information once it's written to the blockchain. It's also traceable information. You can actually track things through the blockchain. Let's say you were to tokenize an asset, some product in a supply chain, then what you could do is you could actually track that information, you could record it to the blockchain, and then you've got this forever log of an item moving through a supply chain, which cannot be corrupted or anything like that.
It's immutable,
So the useful ledger capabilities, being able to use the ledger, the blockchain ledger, for all sorts of interesting use cases, supply chains, assets, being able to tokenize assets, all the different things that companies are trying right now, certification, title deeds, certificates of ownership, doing digital identity. Those are the useful capabilities of Bitcoin that make it valuable. Now, BTC doesn't have those capabilities because it's too expensive to use, and they have artificially limited the block size. And so you can't get transactions into the block unless you pay enormous amounts on the fee. So when we look at Bitcoin being money, I mean, to me it's very plain to see that BSV is very good money.
Straight up.
It satisfies all the properties of money, and the value is the utility.
Ticks all the boxes, Mr. G.
Yes. Whereas BTC fails on the value side of things. Even though they will say this is a store of value, they can't explain what value it is. What benefit does it give you? How does it make your life better to have a Bitcoin BTC token? It doesn't. The only thing that you're going to get out of it is a greater fool coming along one day and paying you more than you paid for it. So that's pretty much what that episode covers.
The scary part is that currently, with the hype, it seems like nobody has learned. This info is out there, Mr. G, but people are still ignoring the truth about BSV.
Yeah, well, they don't want to know about it. They want to see the moonbeams. Remember, they got moonbeams in their eyes. They've got Lamborghinis that they are imagining in their garages. They don't want to know anything about BSV being this boring enterprise network technology that's regulatory compliant. There is no price upswings in the future. Remember, BTC can pump and dump spectacularly because it has no fundamentals.
True.
Whereas BSV has fundamentals, and so if the fundamentals are good, then yes, people will get into BSV. But right now, nobody's looking at blockchain as a regulatory compliant network. People want big gains. They see BTC $100,000. That's where the money's at, right? They don't want to know that there's this technology that enterprises might be able to use to improve things and all that. It's not exciting. It's not sexy.
It's not at all. It's all just a gamble.
Indeed.
So cool. Ms. G, this one is episode 18, the Bitcoin halving, going back to this year's halving.
Yes.
So it's an event that takes place every 4 years. Where the miners' rewards are sort of like halved.
That's right. Every block gets created, less reward for the miner. Now, the whole idea of the Bitcoin halving, when you think about BTC, they love this idea of Bitcoin halving because for them, they just see one equation, which is limited supply. They think, well, the demand is so much and the supply is getting halved, surely that means then that the Bitcoins are going to become twice as valuable.
Yeah.
And so they have this idea that the halvings are their favorite and their best thing ever. They're all just, hoping and holding on for the next halving, thinking that there's going to be some pump that comes thereafter. But they don't realize that halving BTC, that is, they don't realize that every time those rewards get halved, that means there's less income for the miners.
Yeah.
And if the miners can continue, if they want to continue mining, well, they're going to have to make that income up some way. And of course, what we've seen is the prices on the fees of those transactions are going higher, because there is no other way for miners to make income apart from the fees. The idea there was that when a miner mines a block, then what happens is they get all the fees from all the transactions inside that block, and they get some subsidy. And it started off being 50 BTC, and then 4 years later it was halved to 25, and then 4 years later to 12 and a half. And I don't know how many 4 years we've gone, but yes, in 2024 there was a halving, and I think the reward went out to like 3 and a bit.
3.5, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that means now the miners are going to need to make up that lost income with fees. Now, of course, with BTC, there's a limited number of transactions you can put in a block.
Yeah.
And so that means those transactions are going to have to make up the miner income.
Jeez.
And so this is actually, for people in BTC, this is catastrophic.
It is.
They shouldn't be so excited about the BTC subsidy halving.
They clearly don't understand the whole idea of mining if they are excited about that.
They certainly don't, and they certainly lack an important economic principle that Bitcoin is based on, which is that miners are incentivized to process transactions so they can pick up the fees of those transactions.
Yeah.
And the more transactions that there are in a block, the more income the miner can make. The way that Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin was that it wouldn't have a limit on the number of transactions that can be put in a block. Satoshi wanted the system to be cheap, because people will only use a system if it's cheap. And so if the miners are going to still be able to generate revenue, they need to be able to process as many transactions as they can in a block. Now, if there are billions of transactions with a tiny, tiny, tiny fee, that can more than make up the lost revenue.
Yeah.
That's justified. But BTC have now a ticking time bomb, where they're so excited about this bomb going off, they don't realize it's going to rip them apart.
It's imploding.
This whole halving process is completely misunderstood by people in Bitcoin BTC. For them, it's purely a supply thing. They don't realize that miners need to stay incentivized. If they're not making money, they're going to stop mining. And if they stop mining, guess what? It's over.
There's no BTC.
There's nothing. So these guys have a major problem. Now, of course, they say, well, look, we can reduce fees by moving transactions away from the Bitcoin blockchain. Well, that's exactly doing the opposite of what you want. It means that the miners are going to have even less incentive to process transactions, because then they're going to just be sitting there and waiting for a transaction. It's all been shifted into Lightning.
Another chain, which is essentially like broken at that point.
Yes. So the miners are going to sit there, well, when are they going to get a transaction to process? Every single transaction they process is going to have some ginormous fee on it. Otherwise, the miner's just not going to bother. This halving thing is actually their worst nightmare.
It is.
With the BSV, this is what Satoshi built into the system. The idea that blocks are enormous, fees are low, miners can pick up as many transactions as they like. They've got no restrictions. If they want to make more money, they can just pick up more transactions. And that's how the entire Bitcoin system is incentivized. It's an economic system. Miners are economically incentivized to process transactions because they earn income. If they have no incentive to process blocks and transactions because there's just too few transactions and the fees are not high, miners ain't going to mine.
So basically, it's like, a dead shaft right there.
Yes. Bitcoin halving is a ticking time bomb for BTC, but well understood and thought of and planned for by Satoshi Nakamoto, and that's why BSV doesn't have that problem.
Yeah, straight up, man. I mean, Satoshi had a clear vision, Mr. G.
He did. He figured it out.
Dev. Yo, we're stepping into episode 21. Which is Dumpamentals, which I guess this speaks more on how everyone the influencers, whether it be Trump or your Elon Musks, any of these prominent names in the space, they have the power of influencing people, to buy, or the price to pump.
Yeah.
And then people get wrecked in the process. The biggest loser always ends up buying,
This is exactly what we see. Like you said, Donald Trump, we're going through the Donald Trump pump right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we just made $100,000 in BTC.
Who would have thought, man?
Well, I mean, this is exactly what BTC is all about. It's about pumping and dumping.
Yep.
And the reason for that is because at the end of the day, there are no fundamentals driving the value or the price of BTC. Everything is all done in charts with technical analysis.
The sorcery.
Exactly. This trading, arcane, magic. And it's very easy for an influencer to come along and say something, and then the price pumps, and maybe somebody else says something and the price dumps. It's all based on influences and technical analysis. There's nothing fundamental giving BTC value, which is why it pumps and dumps like it does.
I guess it's also one of those things that all these influencers sort of like leverage on, the FOMO of the nation. People don't want to be left out, so also just having to follow suit because Elon Musk said. It seems like a normal culture these days.
Yeah, it certainly does. If you are in BTC and other cryptos, you're on a roller coaster cart. It's even a cliche, It's not even like we're saying anything new here. But
it's even in the thumbnail, yo.
Yes, and the point is that there is nothing fundamental driving the value of BTC.
Yeah.
There's no use case. There are no businesses implementing Bitcoin BTC. There's no applications built on it.
Nothing.
There's nothing that somebody can look at and say, well, that's very useful.
It's just hot air.
Everything is based on hot air and patterns on charts.
Yeah.
And so that is what we cover through in the Pump and Dumpamentals, is just how empty BTC is when it comes to trying to measure the value of it. And hence why we just get these wild roller coaster pumps and then dumps.
I like the fact that it's also quite still on point, because I mean, like you said, we are in the current Trump pump. So it speaks to also like a common culture that's happening. So like our content is evergreen, like you said, Mr. G,
Yeah.
So guys, remember to plug your friends, remember to subscribe. You know the drill by now, mobile money on fire, yeah?
All right, Kage.
Mr. G.
Are you rich yet?
Well, in spirit I am.
So we haven't cracked how to get rich in crypto, right?
I don't think that's the type of richness that I want, Mr. G. We believe in putting in the work, proof of work, hard work. So if we're going to get rich, it's going to be the honest way.
Yes, exactly. And that's what this episode covers.
Yeah.
This idea that everybody wants to get rich by buying some crypto and then sitting on it, and that's your path to riches.
Yeah.
Well, we just want to throw a nice bucket on top of that idea. We go through why that is just a hopeless dream. Of course, when you see the price pumping right now and everyone looking rich, you seem like well, that must be the way to do it, right? If only we were smart enough or whatever to jump on early.
It's easy, especially now, Mr. G. Like the FOMO is real.
Yeah. So this episode goes through how we think you can get rich in crypto, and at the end of the day, it's about hard work. It's about taking technology, finding people with problems, and then solving their problems.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's through hard work and through dedication and diligence and perseverance.
Yeah.
Proof of work, as they say in Bitcoin, which is where we are, and proof of work is a wonderful concept. It's a lesson for life.
It is.
If you work, well, that's where the proof is. That's where your wealth will come from. So don't think about buying any crypto to get rich quick. At the end of the day, it's a mug's game, and will probably make you poor.
Guys, you heard it straight from Mr. G. There's no way any else where you can get the truth like it is. So Mr. G, we're stepping into our next one, which is episode 26. And the question here is, which Bitcoin?
Yes. I mean, we just spoke about that, the different versions of Bitcoin. And then in this tasty thumbnail, in this tasty show, we go through that. Not many people know this, that there are many different versions of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Of course, there's Bitcoin BTC, which is the $100,000 Bitcoin. There's Bitcoin Cash. There's Bitcoin Gold. Now, of course, Bitcoin SV, in our mind, is the only one. And I mean, this is fact.
Facts.
That sticks to the original design of Bitcoin by Satoshi Nakamoto. That's why it's called Bitcoin Satoshi Vision.
Yeah.
And so we're going to just take you through those different versions, how we got here, how did we end up with these different versions, and which is the tastiest. Of course, we believe that Bitcoin SV is the tastiest Bitcoin because at the end of the day, it can actually do things for you. BTC, not so much.
It's honey dripping, Mr. G. BSV is the most tastiest. I mean, it's so tasty that anyone and everyone can have it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to know how did we get to a world where we have multiple versions of Bitcoin, how did we get all this confusion, check out Which Bitcoin.
Yeah, short. Yeah, then that's episode 26, guys. So yeah, our next episode is 28, Mr. G, bringing down the government.
Yes, and of course this has been a perpetual trope inside Bitcoin and in crypto.
Yeah.
And of course there are cryptos out there that are specifically trying to be anonymous. They call them privacy coins, but that's just misdirection. Monero, Zcash, they're trying to be anonymous.
Yeah.
And of course Bitcoin wasn't built to be anonymous. It was built to be traceable and interestingly, it was meant to be governable and controllable. Bitcoin was built to be controlled so that governments could feel comfortable with it. And if they wanted to, they could seize funds, they could freeze funds. This is what Bitcoin was built to do.
Yeah.
Most people don't know this.
They don't.
If you've ever heard of mining, Bitcoin mining, this idea that these large data centers with racks and racks of computers munching electricity and just processing random numbers, everybody thinks that that the purpose of mining is to just make it so that you can't corrupt the ledger or you can't double spend or whatever it is. But really that whole process is specifically designed to make those miners accountable to law enforcement. And so if there is a terrorist who is laundering millions of dollars or somebody steals your dollars or whatever it is, governments have the ability to put court orders out there. Law enforcement can come around, knock on the doors of these mining operations, arrest the directors and the operators and the staff and whatever it is, seize the computers, unless they behave honestly. And that was a very important word in the Bitcoin white paper. It was used multiple times, that miners need to behave honestly. And if they are honest, they will make more money. Why? Because if they're dishonest and they maybe do a double spend transaction, or they decide to not follow a court order and to seize and to freeze funds, then they would get all that investment that they've now put into that mining operation taken away and confiscated. And so this whole idea of bringing down the governments, that Bitcoin is there to undermine governments, undermine the nation state. I just remember watching that Netflix documentary, The Money Electric. And there was that old Bitcoin developer there, Amir Taki. And he's just talking about how Bitcoin was specifically built to undermine the nation state. I think that's the word he used.
Is it?
And it just shows you, and I mean, he's one of the earliest Bitcoin developers there was, and that's why people still respect the guy. But can you see how he misunderstood Bitcoin? He says that Bitcoin is there to undermine the state. No, it wasn't. It was there to work alongside the state and to work within the regulatory rules. That's what mining is all about. And so in this episode, we go and show you that Bitcoin, far from bringing down governments, was there to rather make governments more
efficient,
transparent, accountable, as well as businesses.
People don't realize that, when Satoshi built Bitcoin, when he created Bitcoin, he created it with the current systems in mind. Like whether it's regulation, how money moves, whatever aspect that needed to be sort of like abided by, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. He followed all the existing rules around payments and transactions. Traceable ledger, transparent, pseudonymous, not anonymous. Pseudonymous means you can see the information but not necessarily link it to an identity. He said that identities are firewalled from the blockchain. In other words, we know the identities of people, but you can't see it from the blockchain unless a regulator or an auditor wants to know, what is your information? What are your transactions? Let's see it. And those can be provided to that auditor. And so that's why Bitcoin is private. Bitcoin is not anonymous. You can see the transactions and only find out about the nature of those transactions or the identity of the people linked to those transactions if that information is willingly given over. So absolutely, Bitcoin was designed to work with the existing rules and regulations around payments and also around just general computing.
Yes.
Having a ledger, a database where miners are having to fulfill the rules around the blockchain. They can't go and manipulate that and corrupt it, because that's a computer crime.
Exactly. I mean, we spoke about how much the word honesty was used in the white paper. So it also goes back to show that, it wasn't just a technical thing, but there was also a moral ground of how this thing was built based on existing systems.
That's right.
Yeah.
Satoshi was very moral, very upstanding, definitely not a cypherpunk.
No, definitely not, Mr. G. Shout out to Satoshi, yo.
All right, Kage, they caught you in the shower there.
Hey, Mr. G. My privacy, okay.
Yeah. Yes. What episode was this one?
This was episode 29.
Okay, episode 29, the dark side of crypto privacy.
Yeah.
So there we go. I mean, that's what we were just talking about, this idea that Bitcoin was pseudonymous, not anonymous. And when you hear about Monero and Zcash and other privacy coins, they only say that they're private because everybody knows you can't be anonymous. The ring of Gyges, Plato, if you put on a ring that can make you anonymous, you're going to do bad stuff. That's just the nature of human nature.
Yeah.
So in this episode, we just go more into that. The idea, the difference between anonymity and pseudonymity, why Satoshi wanted a system to be private but not anonymous.
Yeah, pretty cool episode actually, Mr. G. For me, it also, sort of like deciphered all the misconceptions around privacy and anonymity, because these guys sort of like use the terms like, concurrently. Yeah. And we all know that, on the BSV side, what privacy meant and what anonymity meant. So check it out, guys. Remember also to plug your friends, So Ms. G, our next episode is episode 30. And this one is Bitcoin is not decentralized.
Yes, well, I mean, we did talk about decentralization earlier, and there you can see us in our ivory tower. And really, when it comes to BTC, this is exactly what it is like. Everybody says it's decentralized and everything's consensus, it's all democracy. Yeah. But the reality is that there are a very few number of people, really a handful of people, right at the top of BTC who get to make all the decisions. They are able to determine what changes get made to BTC. Now, very importantly, Satoshi Nakamoto, he said that the protocol is set in stone. Yeah. And so that the protocol really is the design of Bitcoin, how it behaves, how does it move information, that design defined in the white paper. He said that is set in stone. And the reason for that is because he didn't want a world where there would be developers and people coming along and saying, maybe we should make this change, maybe we should make that change. Because as soon as you can make changes to a system, it means you've got power. And you can control things. And this is exactly how it is in BTC. There are probably no more than 10 people who have the ability to make radical changes to Bitcoin BTC, whether you like them or not. Jeez. And of course, there was the segregated witness change where they removed the signatures out of the transactions.
And these are not like baby changes, Mr. G. These are like protocol changes, like fundamental protocol changes, because it shifts away completely from the original version.
That's right, and makes Bitcoin into something different. Satoshi wanted, as we said, a regulatory compliance system. Well, segregated witness now, by removing signatures from transactions, has broken that regulatory compliance. And so now if you're a business and you're wanting to use Bitcoin BTC, well, you've got a problem, because now there are no signatures. These get segregated, they get separated out of the transactions, out of the block. And so this is a major change. And also, of course, the replaced by fee change, where because Bitcoin BTC was so expensive, every time somebody wanted to create a transaction, it wouldn't get picked up by the miners because there was a limited number of transactions that could fit in a block. And so they came up with this crazy idea, well, okay, then just rebroadcast your transaction with a higher fee, and then hopefully the miner will pick it up.
That's not practical, Mr. G. What if that's all I have in my wallet? I have no money to raise the fee.
Exactly. And also, as a merchant, how can you accept a transaction unless it's been confirmed multiple times? In other words, an hour has gone by. Jeez. As a merchant, you can't just accept a Bitcoin payment, a BTC payment. You've got to wait for it to get put into a block, and then that takes time. And that's because you have the ability, once you've processed that transaction to the merchant, to then reprocess that transaction to somebody else at a higher fee. Or just that the transaction doesn't get put into a block and it gets dropped out the mempool. So this idea of being able to rebroadcast transactions, a major change to Bitcoin. Who decided that? Was it the BTC community? No. It was a handful of people. And so in this episode, we just go and show you how BTC is not decentralized. I know the title is Bitcoin is not decentralized, but we talk about specifically BTC not being decentralized. Now, BSV is decentralized because nobody can change that protocol. Not the BSV association, not the companies, the prominent companies.
Not even Satoshi.
Not even Satoshi. Yeah. Satoshi Nakamoto can't go and make changes to BSV. Even if he wanted to, he has created the system. It's set in stone. That is how it was put out there.
He said it himself. It's set in stone.
Set in stone. And that's, in fact, what makes the system decentralized. BTC, however, is not decentralized because you've got a few people that you don't know. You might see their faces, but you have no control over it. They can go and manipulate and change Bitcoin to their heart's content, whether you like it or not.
And I like the fact that you put it that way, Mr. G, because it is to their heart's content. It's not even a matter of considering the community, the original protocol itself, but it's, if I feel like these changes can be implemented today, I guess that's what they do.
That's what they do, and that's what they've done. Yes. So check out that episode if you want to find out exactly why Bitcoin BTC is not decentralized and why, of course, Bitcoin Satoshi's vision is.
Straight up, Mr. G. I mean, that's why we believe there can only be one blockchain.
Yes, that's right. And that's that next episode. This thumbnail was
episode 33.
33, and we were taking the idea from the Highlander.
Duncan MacLeod.
Yes, there can be only one. The idea that there can be only one Highlander. And so, we go into this episode talking about the idea of a single blockchain world. Now, of course, that's not so crazy to think. I mean, we have a single internet world, and wouldn't it be so much more efficient when it comes to skills and stuff, to learn one blockchain? Back in the early days of the internet, there were multiple competing protocols for the internet. And what happened was we eventually all settled on the single open network, this protocol that was set in stone, TCP/IP. And it bloomed because it meant now that anybody could now interact with this and use this internet protocol, create websites, send emails, do whatever they want, and it was more efficient. It meant that that skills could be, you only had to learn one set of skills to be able to use this protocol. And so in our minds, it just seems more likely that there's going to be a single blockchain.
That's how it is.
Because Bitcoin isn't that different from the internet protocol. The Bitcoin blockchain is just a protocol defining how packets or rather how transactions move around on the network. Whereas the internet protocol is just a design for how information moves around on a network. And so if history is a guide, and it seems very similar to this, it seems that there's only going to be one blockchain. Now everyone will say, well, Bitcoin can't do Turing complete this and it can't do that. It can.
Those are people who don't understand it.
Yes. Bitcoin was built to be a multi-purpose system that you could build smart contracts on. Not many people know that Bitcoin can do what's called Turing complete smart contracts. That's why Ethereum came along, because people misunderstood that. And also because BTC made the fees too high and the blocks too small. But with a Bitcoin that has unbounded block sizes and it has very low fees, you can simulate or emulate Turing complete systems on the Bitcoin blockchain. So we don't need Ethereum. It's extremely low cost. You don't need Ripple for payments.
I wanted to say, I mean, it makes sense for a Turing complete system on the BSV blockchain because it's scalable. So any form of complexity can be accommodated.
Exactly, that's right. And so what's very interesting with BSV right now is that there are researchers working on something called the MetaNet, where the Bitcoin BSV blockchain can become structured to be able to do all sorts of interesting things, where you can host web applications and do all this very interesting stuff in a decentralized kind of way. And so, this is again speaks to the flexibility of Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto added scripting language to it. This is what we call Bitcoin script. But that combined with the structure of Bitcoin, the way Satoshi designed it, means that you can now start creating all these very complex structures, these data structures, and being able to do all of these very interesting things.
I mean, it only makes sense, Mr. G, I mean, for BSV to be that type of a system, because like we were saying, there was a lot of aspects and complexities that were taken into account. So for it not to be like a Turing complete system, it wouldn't make sense, because it would actually entail having to have your Ethereums and all of these unnecessary systems built.
That's right. And on that, none of these systems are really getting it right. I mean, there's also Solana and Cardano. They just can't beat Satoshi's design. Nobody can. The only problem with Satoshi's Bitcoin is that it's been suppressed. And it's been overwhelmed with all this other junk, including Bitcoin BTC. And so the real value of Satoshi's system is not being realized, because the world has gone off the deep end. And
also to your point, Mr. G, I mean, you spoke about, how everyone with the internet protocol was focusing on that. The collective efforts were there, to grow and understand that space. So here it's all over the place, because it's no longer like a collective thing. It's separated now. You have us, you have the BTC dudes, you have the BCH dudes, you have the Solana dudes. But imagine if all of that effort was just put into one basket and saying, this is just for Satoshi's vision.
I know that is the sad thing about the last decade, is that it became so fractured, segmented. Again, this speaks to the idea of having a single network, because now all that effort, all that investment that's gone into all these different blockchains. I mean, there's been billions of dollars spent on developers trying to find ways of, to do things on these different blockchains, develop new blockchains. Imagine if all of that had been just focused on Satoshi's Bitcoin. I can tell you now, Bitcoin probably would be, there would be a single blockchain, and it probably would be $1 million a coin by now.
I wanted to say that, this 100K that we're pushing for BTC, actually, it ain't jack. It's nothing, because really, if we were like focusing on the utility of BSV at this point, like you're saying, just one BSV would probably cost $1 million, because just having that token alone would mean like a groundbreaking sort of like thing for companies or even a person.
Exactly, because Bitcoin would be used. It would be, there would be a natural demand for its tokens, because people would want to use the ledger. We would be so much further along, but unfortunately, greed and misunderstanding just has just misdirected everybody and delayed this wonderful invention.
We were talking about how DeFi is a lie on episode 36.
There we are, looking very much like con men. Yes, exactly. The idea of DeFi, which really is decentralized finance, something that's also been in the public mind. It's all this exciting new thing, being able to democratize finance and make financial services available to everybody on the planet. This is also an unfortunate misdirection, because at the end of the day, and as a business, we're a regulated business, we know that you can't have financial services that are not linked to accountable institutions or key individuals. These are very important technical terms. There has to be people involved. You need to be able to go back to a human being and say, all right, you're responsible for this, I'm now going to throw you in jail or something. And so it's just never going to be possible to create finance that has no accountable people backing it. At the end of the day, though, if you create a smart contract and you let it run, they will still find you, because it comes down to the person who created those smart contracts. So there is no such thing as decentralized finance, at least not the way it's being sold today. At the end of the day, you're always going to need to have accountable people, accountable institutions that are behind the financial services, and that's the only way regulators are ever going to be happy with it, because they want to know if you are screwing people around, if you're scamming people, if you're doing dodgy stuff, they want to find you. People are going to want justice. If they feel like they've been scammed or something, they're going to want somebody to pay for that, to get relief from them.
Definitely, Mr. G. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Imagine just an autonomous system that's running that has no one accountable, or an app. that doesn't make sense. Like, even if these guys like are living off that mindset, it's not realistic.
Yeah, it's not realistic. It sounds exciting, sounds fun, but when you get down to it, you know, you're going to realize there's just insurmountable problems there.
Yeah, straight up, man. Yeah, Miss G, we're stepping into episode 38.
We're stepping into the mines.
Yeah, and this one is talking about Bitcoin mining exposed.
Yes, and in this one, we just talk about what is mining really for.
Yeah.
Is it about just consuming electricity, or is there a more important part to the whole story?
Yeah.
And of course we get stuck into Bitcoin mining, what it's for, why did Satoshi want it, and of course we've mentioned earlier that mining was about accountability. Mining and proof of work is specifically there to make sure that miners grow large enough so they become visible to law enforcement and regulation, and they become accountable. And so if law enforcement is tracking down a criminal, they can go to those miners, they can go to the miner and say, look, miner, if you want to stay operating, if you want to keep operating, you better make sure that transaction that's been broadcast, that you do not mine that transaction, or that you go and create a new transaction, and miners can do this. You go and create a transaction that can move that money into the law enforcement wallet or something like that. And so that is the point of control that governments have and law enforcement has over the system, is the miner. The miner is the accountable institution that can be the one that is held accountable, is held responsible. And if the miner wants to make money, and remember, there's an enormous amount of investment that goes into mining. If the miner wants to make money, they had better behave honestly. They better do whatever the government wants, because if they don't, all that investment gets taken away and the miner loses all that money.
Nobody wants that.
No, and that's what we go into, the fact that mining is also one of the most misunderstood concepts.
Remember, check out the episode, guys. It's episode 38, Bitcoin mining exposed. Mr. G, episode 46. This one speaks about, our major problem, exchanges, man.
Yes, and how crypto exchanges have killed Bitcoin. Now you might say, well, what Bitcoin BTC is $100,000 a coin. It ain't dead. Yes, it is. At least the idea is, although it lives, there's a little green shoot there on the Centbee Show and within the BSV community. Yeah, so this whole episode, we just talk about how exchanges have completely changed or rather misdirected people into thinking that crypto is all about flipping and trading on exchanges. And so nobody cares about utility blockchain anymore. They just want as many tokens as they are possible, so that they can just go and pump and dump them and make money off that and play the charts and play the game. And of course crypto exchanges love this because they make money out of everybody, whether they win or lose. And so this whole idea of the crypto exchange, that has been one of the worst things that ever happened to Bitcoin. The thing that has stolen Satoshi's idea away from us by putting this dream of get rich quick in front of our faces and in front of the world's faces. So the last thing the crypto exchange wants is for people to realize, hang on, we don't need all these cryptos, we don't need all these blockchains, we just need one. And that's what we're going to use. If that world happens, every crypto exchange out there is going to go bankrupt because now nobody wants to trade and flip tokens. So we think, and we pin the blame largely on the crypto exchange as to why we haven't seen Satoshi's vision realized yet.
All of them, all of these exchanges, all of them, from South Africa to the US, all of them, Mr. G.
They're all to blame. They want to make sure that there are as many crypto tokens as possible. They don't care about utility. They just want to milk everybody and keep telling you things like invest. We often talk about the exchanges we know about, and there's these billboards and these banner ads on every single website, and it's all about invest in Bitcoin or invest in crypto.
And Ms. G, according to regulation, isn't like advertising such or posing it as an investment of some sort is a bit illegal?
Well, obviously, government isn't going to need to step in until people start moaning, and people will only start moaning when there is a big collapse.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think that these exchanges had better be very careful about what they say, because if the crypto market collapses tomorrow, and I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but I think there's going to be a time. What's going to happen now is that's when regulators are going to step in and say, hang on, were you guys selling this investment, this crypto token with no value, and you're calling it an investment? So I think there's going to be some hell to pay in that regard.
Rightfully so, yo. Rightfully so.
Yeah, so we think crypto exchanges kill Bitcoin. Check out the episode and you're going to see why we think so.
Yeah, that's episode 46. Yeah, Mr. G, I mean, we're talking about BTC, and it seems like, people are not losing faith in BTC.
Yes, and this is now the next episode. We'll watch this one. It's called Blind Faith in BTC. There we are wearing our religious Bitcoin robes at the Church of Satoshi, and there's our Satoshi Nakamoto sculpture there. We just go into this whole idea that, Bitcoin is not a practical thing, it's a religious thing.
It is.
People have faith that this Bitcoin BTC token is going to go to $1 million. They've got no reason to think so. It's all just based on faith and belief. And at the end of the day, when you only have faith and belief, that is more like a religion than anything else.
True.
And unfortunately, it's not a reasonable faith. They don't have any reasons. They've got blind faith. And so we dive into this whole idea of this Church of Satoshi and the religion that's driving people into BTC.
Yeah, guys, check it out. This is not Sunday, but we're taking you to church. Yeah, Ms. G. Our next episode is actually episode 51. And this speaks about Bitcoin BTC as a cargo cult. I mean, speaks back to what we were talking about BTC being a faith of some sort. Yeah,
that's right. And the cargo cult is kind of like a religion. We go into the history of some famous cargo cults out there. Essentially a cargo cult, you imagine islanders. They haven't seen modern people and modern equipment and modern airplanes back in the World War II. We had these unvisited tribes being visited by soldiers with airplanes and cargo and boxes and things. And they thought, well, if we just want the cargo to come back, all we've got to do is build a control tower and build a runway and march around. And maybe by those actions, we're going to get the cargo to come back. And so we take you through this whole idea of cargo cults, but also, again, speaking to the religion part of things. If you do all these things in BTC, you have your slogans: strong hands, to the moon, laser eyes,
unconfiscatable.
You say all these words, you hodl.
These are mantras to them.
Yes, you do all the rituals. Maybe what will happen is value will come. Your Bitcoin will become valuable. And so, again, that's just, speaking about BTC really having no fundamental, practical use case. And really the value is just coming from hope and dreams and prayers.
The cult is real.
With BSV, with Bitcoin SV, that's not a fake control tower made out of sticks and grass.
Nope.
Bitcoin BSV, that's the real deal. That's a real airport. That's got planes coming in every day, picking up cargo, taking it away, picking up people.
The crazy part is that this airport is big enough to accommodate the traffic, Mr. G.
That's right. Terranode is now pumping millions of transactions per second. Terranode is live. Terranode is the new node implementation that's being developed in association with the Bitcoin Association, the BSV Association, and that is now showing that blocks can be massive and millions of transactions can be processed per second, proving that Satoshi was right when he said that Bitcoin doesn't reach a scaling ceiling. And so it's very exciting to see how BSV is becoming what Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned through the efforts of everybody involved in the Terranode project. And so, we're very excited about that. And we can see in front of our eyes the reality of Bitcoin and the future, the potential future that it can create.
Guys, remember to check out the Centbee app on the stores, man. Experience the future now with BSV, with Centbee as well. So don't miss out. Also plug your friends and family. This is your mobile money on fire.
All right. Next episode, Kage.
Yeah, Mr. G.
We're private investigators.
Yeah, episode 52.
Yeah, that's right. And there we're getting our magnifying glasses out and we're looking for clues for The real Satoshi.
Yeah, man, because this has been an ongoing question, you know?
Yes.
Like, who is the real Satoshi?
The biggest mystery of all.
It's been a mystery, Mr. G, but not for us. That's for everyone else, because we've been knowing who Satoshi is.
Yes, exactly. You know, this is a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
This question of who is Satoshi Nakamoto, and there was an HBO documentary where they go on this mission to find the real Satoshi.
Yeah.
And they bark up wrong trees, and they just, you know, do exactly what every other person in crypto has done, which is just completely miss the obvious, staring you in the face. Yeah, so if you want a little bit of insight into Satoshi Nakamoto, who he is and, well, who he could be, at least according to us, check out On the Trail of Satoshi, and we debunk what is covered in the HBO documentary, and we of course bring up the most likely / unlikely suspect in this whole saga, the one that nobody in crypto wants to believe is Satoshi, but really when you get stuck in and you dig into his background, Dr. Craig Wright, I mean, there's just, it just seems like it's ridiculous to think that he isn't.
The problem is that with people, they always want, what they want.
Yeah.
They want their heroes to be a particular character, have certain attributes. But hey, Craig is just a mere human being, and it was never about him being a celebrity or whatever. His focus was just building the tech, and he makes it clear that it's about that.
That's right. Yeah. And although I'll probably say that I wouldn't call him a mere human being. I mean, Dr. Craig Wright.
I know.
I mean, that guy, if you just think about his, I think he must have one of the world record in credentials. Master's degrees, PhDs. He is just so educated.
Yeah.
He knows so much about so much. When he talks about Bitcoin, we are blessed to have so many of his lectures and his discussions and his podcasts and stuff out there. There's just so much information that he has given. He hasn't been trying to sell you anything. He has just been sharing information and enlightening us about what Bitcoin is. And, when you listen to him, it just makes sense. Bitcoin starts becoming alive when you listen to Dr. Craig Wright.
Yeah.
You realize, wow, so much of what we're told is so fake and so false.
Yeah.
When you hear truth, whether you like it or not, you can't escape it.
You can't, Mr. G. It sticks.
It sticks and it resonates if your mind is open.
Even if your mind is not open, Mr. G, it sticks. Because, for you to pick the opposite side, somehow you need to be aware of the other side.
I especially love this episode. It's nice to get stuck into this question. It's such a cool mystery / obvious fact about what's going on out there. But of course, most people don't want to know about who Satoshi is. Even Coinbase, they said that the real Satoshi appearing would have a massive negative effect on their business. And so there are millions of people out there in crypto who don't want Satoshi Nakamoto to be revealed. They want to keep him as a statue. They want to keep him in a box.
We are all Satoshi.
That's right. We are all Satoshi.
Yeah.
They want to speak for Satoshi. They want to say words. They want to put words in Satoshi's mouth. They don't like the words coming out of Dr. Wright's mouth. And they want to make sure that Dr. Wright stays mute and stays locked down and shut away so that he can't bring truth and bring a nuclear bomb.
I think it's fine, even if they lock him up and they throw away the key. What he has built will stand the test of time, Mr. G.
Yes, exactly. I think that at the end of the day, ideas matter, and Dr. Wright's ideas are leaking out there. We are obviously trying to spread those ideas, and that's what can change the world. One idea at a time, and of course a small tireless minority of people pushing those ideas, and that's us. And so we're of course behind Dr. Wright, but if you want to know more about that and you want to dig into that little story and you want to go on the trail of Satoshi, check out that episode.
Yeah, and that's episode 52, yo.
Cool.
Yeah, Ms. G, episode 53. And this one speaks about the passing of Bitcoin.
That's right. Now, of course, Dr. Wright is not just hiding away. He's not sitting and letting the world just carry on. He is fighting. He is the Satoshi we needed.
Yeah.
And he has rolled up his sleeves and he is bringing the fight. And so one of the important things about Bitcoin BTC is that Bitcoin BTC is not Bitcoin as defined by Satoshi in the white paper, which means if you call BTC Bitcoin, you are misnaming it.
Yeah.
And if you are selling BTC as Bitcoin, well, then you are what's called passing off BTC as Bitcoin. And passing off is a technical term that says you are trying to sell something
that it's not. Yeah.
If you were selling Pepsi and you put a Coke label on it and you said it was Coke, guess what? You're passing off Pepsi as Coke. And so that's not legally allowed. And Dr. Wright is now bringing this case to the BTC community, and he is trying to now show how BTC is being passed off as Bitcoin, and of course there are massive legal implications.
You guys are all guilty, man, out there. Yo, you should have stuck to BSV.
Yeah.
Safest, the realest.
I don't know if there are any BTC fans watching this show. If you are a BTC fan and you're watching this show, well, we welcome you with open arms. And, we're glad that you're here. And if you're watching and you're learning a few things, awesome. That's what we want. We want to invite everybody in.
Yeah, they're slowly sobering up.
Yeah, sober up on the Centbee Show. And thanks for watching. Let us know if you are a BTC fan and you disagree with us.
Yeah.
We'd love to know, and comment down there, and we'll answer you.
Yeah, straight up.
But we welcome you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But we keep it BSV, yo. Don't get it twisted. Yeah. Now we're on episode 57, and this speaks to the current situation. Actually, this is Bitcoin Nation under Trump.
Yes, now this is a lot more current, because this was just done a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Episode 57, and what's happening right now, Bitcoin, BTC, $100,000. Well, there's only one person you can really blame, and it's not Michael Saylor, but Donald Trump. Donald Trump made a lot of campaign promises about BTC, about how he was going to create a Bitcoin reserve and how he was going to go light on regulations, and he was going to make America the Bitcoin superpower of the world. And now that he's been elected, although he's not president yet, I guess we've got to wait for next year, January.
Yeah.
Everybody is excited now about his 1 million Bitcoin purchase promise using taxpayer money. And so everybody's just thinking, well, I mean, Trump didn't say there was going to be a particular price that he was going to buy those Bitcoins at. He just said he's going to buy 1 million. So if you can pump the price of BTC up, doesn't matter, because guess what? The US government is going to come and buy those Bitcoins off you. And so, of course, we just see that pump happening right now.
It's all
so obvious. Yeah, so it's a lie. It's crazy. But we just talk about Trump, his promises, what he plans to do in terms of buying Bitcoin BTC, and why we're going through this crazy pump that we're doing today.
The Trump pump. Mr. G, our last episode is actually last week's episode, which is Crypto Bubble Mania.
Yep, so there we go. If you haven't watched last week's episode, check it out, Crypto Bubble Mania, and we just go through history again.
Yeah.
We show how throughout history there have been bubbles and manias and people speculating and investing in things that have eventually popped. And so we just show you that what's going on in the world today in terms of crypto and BTC, it follows the exact same pattern as every one of these bubbles before it. Specifically the Gartner hype cycle, which shows how when there's a new innovation, people get excited, they pile in, things go to the moon, and then reality sets in, and then it plummets. And so with BTC, of course, and crypto, we don't think we've even come close really yet to the trough of disillusionment. Everybody's still riding that peak of inflated expectations. And so we just show you how, through the tulip bubble and other manias, why Bitcoin BTC just fits so well within that paradigm. And you better watch out below, because if it does follow those cycles, then we are certainly headed into an inevitable collapse. And you don't want to be holding the bag when that happens.
And this one seems like it's going to be the worst of all.
Yes, I mean, there's so many people, especially with $100,000 Bitcoin, everybody's going to be piling, and everybody wants to get a piece, moms and pops and people who would never have normally got into crypto. So it's unlike the tulip bubble, which didn't really affect that many people, although it was quite devastating.
I feel like, Mr. G, this bubble is sort of like carrying the burden of the previous bubbles that we didn't learn from history. This was supposed to be a clear lesson of us saying, you know what, this happened before, so we could avoid it, but nah, we're here now. So it's getting big and big. It's getting hyper inflated every day. I mean, it's on 100K already now. I see it going, but by the burst comes, people will be thrown off by surprise.
They will. Yeah. So I mean, watch out below.
Yeah.
If you've made money, well, take some off the table. I mean, don't be that pig that gets slaughtered.
Yeah. You're gonna have some bacon now.
Cool. Well, that's it, guys. I mean, that's just a little cross-section of the episodes that we've done over this last year. We're now on episode 60, and we've got another 60 planned for next year.
Yeah.
Is it? Or at least 52. So we're going to be coming every single week, bringing you more information and more content around Bitcoin and Satoshi's vision. As we said before, our other shows are not current events.
Yeah.
They are evergreen. And so go and check out some of our older episodes. Obviously, we've been learning how to do podcasts, getting into this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so the further back you go, the rougher it gets. But the content is still good. It's still important, valuable information around Bitcoin. And if you go and watch those shows, you are definitely going to be arming yourself for this battle that we're all in. As Satoshi soldiers.
Straight up, Ms. G, you said it. I was actually waiting for that, Joe. Yeah, Ms. G, we're going to be stepping into this week's user questions and feedback. Our first one comes from More Auctions, and they're asking, are you thinking BSV is going to go to zero and will have no monetary value and only be something built upon? Is it pointless for someone to save BSV like it's cash? It seems that the BSV ecosystem sees saving a BTC as a terrible thing, or is it because it's their only focus?
I think that's an excellent question, which has a few parts in it.
Yeah.
So he talks about is Bitcoin BSV going to go to zero, but then he also says, is it going to go to zero because people are only going to want to build on it and not use it as money or investments?
Yeah.
And then he says, are people not going to want to save it? Because we always say, don't hodl.
Yeah.
It's about using.
Yeah.
So when people build on BSV, in other words, they are creating applications that use BSV for some reason, to trace something through a supply chain, store a certificate, do ID, whatever.
Yeah.
To use BSV, you need the token.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So you can write a transaction, because you can only create a transaction in Bitcoin if you actually go and take Bitcoin and you spend it onto something and you code up some kind of functionality in that.
Yeah.
And so if people want to build on BSV, if they want to use it, they need to acquire the BSV token to do that.
Yeah.
Now there's a limited supply of these tokens. And so if lots of people, lots of businesses want to start using BSV in their businesses, they are going to go out and buy all those BSVs that they can.
Yeah.
And so by using it, by building on it, means people want to use it and acquire it, which means there's going to be a value attached to it.
Utility.
So by people building on BSV doesn't mean now that the token goes down to zero. It's the opposite. It means the token becomes more valuable and people are willing to pay a higher price for it. So by building on BSV, that's where the value comes from. That's how your token is going to be able to grow in value. Now with BTC, you can't build on it. You can't do anything with it. So why do people want to acquire it? Because they think they can sell it at a higher price later. What for?
Yeah.
Well, that person's going to sell it to another person.
Yeah.
That person's going to sell it to another person. Nobody's going to use BTC.
Nothing.
But with BSV, it's much more organic. I want to use this system. I need to find some BSV tokens. I'm going to start buying BSV tokens. And as soon as I start buying BSV tokens, the price goes up.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing. With use comes value and a normal price. In other words, if there's a lot of demand for the token, the price goes up.
And organically so.
Yes, it's a natural demand, supply and demand. When we always say don't hodl it, we're not saying don't save it. Now, of course, if you think that BSV is going to be used, then you can save it, because maybe you're going to save it for one day when somebody wants to use it. Just like with gold. You know, the idea of gold is not that you just have gold. You have gold because you know either you're going to want to use it for something, like jewelry or something, or somebody else is going to want to use that gold for something. That's why gold is
a store of value.
Stored. Because you know that at some point somebody's going to want to use this metal for something.
And it's non-perishable.
Because gold is so useful as a metal. BSV is useful as a blockchain token.
Yeah.
And so if you want to save it because you think somebody's going to use it later on, by all means. But we're trying to say is that this is not a hodl culture.
Yes.
With BTC, it's about hodl. Everybody is supposed to buy and hodl, not to use.
Don't use it.
But BSV, sure, go ahead. If you really think that BSV is going to be a useful thing one day, go ahead and save it. Now, you can bring about that reality much quicker if you go and also show people how to use it, or if you go and build tools for it. Every time you build something that is useful for somebody on BSV, the value of your saved tokens is going to go up, because it means now that finally somebody has a reason to use BSV.
Yeah.
So you can just save it and sit on it and hope that others are going to do the work where they create functionality for BSV, or you can accelerate that and not hope and wait that somebody else is going to do it. You can go in yourself and bring about that reality. So that was an excellent question.
Yeah.
BSV value comes from use. It's not going to go to zero if it's useful. And if you really think it is going to be useful, then saving it, sure, no problem. But don't just save it and think, well, I'm going to hope that everybody else gets to work and does it, because maybe there is nobody else, you know.
Nobody.
Maybe it's up to you.
Yeah.
So if you really believe in this thing, then just go out and do something about it. Do something you can do. If you're not technical, if you maybe you're good at marketing, or maybe you're good at storytelling, or something. I mean, here we're just sitting talking about it, right? You know? And we're hoping to contribute to the space so that BSV becomes valuable. We want BSV to be valuable.
Straight up.
And so this is what we are able to do. Luckily, we also have a business with Centbee Wallet.
Yeah.
And so we want people to use their saved BSV tokens. And by using your saved BSV tokens, people are going to see, wow, you know, there's activity going on. The miners are going to mine because they now have transactions to mine. They're going to make income. It's going to create an organic, natural space for BSV to thrive.
And also, Mr. G, just taking note that us being in Africa, you know, we're trying to solve, like, you know, transactional issues, you know, how money moves, the expenses and all of that. So it's already a working use case in our space.
Exactly.
Our second one comes from Talon, one of our regulars.
Yeah, Talon. Nice to have you.
Nice to have you, man. Yeah. So he's saying we are in it for the long haul, hoping the world sees it for what BSV has to offer.
Yes, exactly. We're also in it for the long haul.
Yep.
We know that this is going to be something eventually that the rest of the world sees and understands.
Yeah.
And so we're not rushing.
No.
You know, we know that this is going to be a long game, especially with crypto out there and BTC and everything pumping and dumping. It's a hard fight. But what I always say and what I think is that it's great for the builders.
Yeah.
Because and also great for people who just want to invest in BSV, because nobody's looking at it.
Yeah.
It's like Bitcoin 10 years ago, even more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There's very few competitors out there.
Yeah.
And so here we have a wonderful opportunity to get into Bitcoin on the ground again. You know, how, I mean, at $60, $70, whatever it is right now, that is the Bitcoin that is going to succeed. The BTC, $100,000 Bitcoin, is going to go nowhere. It's going to just go down eventually. And so, you know, we have this amazing opportunity right now because we have figured it out. We've clicked onto what Satoshi was talking about.
Yeah.
And so if he's right, then that means that eventually people are going to figure out this BSV thing, and they are going to be piling in. And when that day comes, then, you know, we're going to be like just another dime a dozen, nothing special, you know, everyone's going to be there. But right now we are special. We are the early adopters. We are, after 10, 15 years of Bitcoin, we're still the early adopters, because we have adopted Satoshi's Bitcoin. And the rest of the world went off the edge of the cliff. They're in the air. They think they're flying like Superman.
The pigs think they're flying now.
The pigs are flying, and they don't realize that the ground is coming up very fast, and eventually
a slaughterhouse.
Yes, exactly. So there we go. That's the thing. Thanks, I'm telling for that great one. Yes, this is the long haul, but we are early in this, and we're gonna ride that wave.
Thanks for that, I'm telling. Yeah, our third one comes from Thomas Nowak, and well, he's saying, love the show, gents. It truly keeps your mind from all the FOMO, the greed, and illusion.
Yes, there's so much FOMO out there. We want to throw a bucket of ice water on all that, and don't get FOMO. You know, think clearly. FOMO is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Because you're not behaving and acting with sensible judgment. You've got panic, worried that you're going to miss out. It's not clear thinking. It's not rational thinking
at all.
So don't get FOMO. Don't be irrational. Think carefully about what this is, and just know that there is no easy path to riches. Yes, you can go to a casino and you can put it all on one number and you can make $1 million. But I mean, that is just luck. That's just a chance. Don't take a chance on your future. Be somebody who thinks clearly and rationally and can make rational decisions. It's just very hard to do that right now.
Yeah.
But if you do that, you're not going to be the one that ends up having to pick yourself off the floor and dust yourself off. You're going to be standing strong, standing tall, and you'll be able to head in the right direction and do what is right.
Yeah.
So don't get FOMO.
Yeah, Mr. G, remember.
Except FOMO for the truth.
I wanted to say,
yes.
The only FOMO we suffer from is that one, FOMO of the truth.
Right.
So yeah, guys, remember to plug your friends, subscribe, show some love. Yeah, Mobile Money on Fire. So yeah, Ms. G, our last one comes from Mutant Genesis. Well, they're saying, finally, I thought Peter Schiff was the only one. Finally, I found this. I was starting to think that no one sees it. The whole world is getting bonkers.
Yes, Peter Schiff, what a legend. The only person who understands BTC.
This is dope, man, because it's like you can tell like there's a sense of frustration there, like, oh my God, like everyone is just, drunk on this BTC Kool-Aid. But at least, there's people like Peter Schiff and us,
and us.
Yeah.
Yes, Peter Schiff, famous economist. He's been a Bitcoin bear for so long. He hates on Bitcoin. He thinks it's a load of rubbish, and he's right. Except he doesn't know that it's BTC he's talking about. He doesn't know the difference between BTC and Bitcoin. I did manage to once have a conversation with him, but he just can't see through all this BTC rubbish.
Yeah.
Yes, there are people out there. And just like Michael Burry from The Big Short, there are people who look foolish when everything is flying high, but eventually, when there's the crash and the dust settles, everybody realizes those guys were visionaries. And so let's be like Michael Burry, right? Let's be the contrarian.
Yeah.
Peter Schiff one day will be called out for being right. Right now everybody thinks he's wrong because his predictions haven't come true yet.
Yeah.
But they will.
They will.
And we think that our predictions are going to come true as well, especially about Bitcoin Satoshi Vision.
Without a doubt, Mr. G. I mean, we're here. We've been fighting. We're still going on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Kage.
Mr. G.
Well, that's it. Thanks for the trip down memory lane. I want to thank you.
I want to thank you, man.
For the show. And I want to thank all of you for joining us here on the Centbee Show. Please come back soon.
Bam.